Hey guys, thanks for checking out Quick Sessions Podcast. My name's Garrett Terrio, coming to you from Timberline Fitness Studio in Houston, Texas. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about foam rolling. Now, what that is, you've probably all used it before for whatever reason. Tight muscles, fatigued muscles, use it as a method to stretch out, and it's painful, right? It hurts, but the more you do it, it kind of loosens that up, right? It doesn't hurt as much as you go. So before I get into it, the kind of history of it, it started in the 80s where people started using foam rollers. It was physical therapists. One of the guys I was reading earlier, his name's Sean Gallagher, is kind of the first physical therapist that's attributed with the start of using a foam roller doing therapy with his patients. And while he didn't invent it, he's kind of the first guy to get credit. And that was about 1987 is what it had it documented as. And after that, many more therapists started using it as a method to help relieve muscles while they were going through therapy. It's funny though, the first patent for the foam roller didn't start until 2004. So I thought it was kind of interesting how much time passed and no one thought to have a registered foam roller. Now, what does a foam roller do? Well, the idea is that when you work out, you run, your iliotibial tract gets tight, gets knotted up, gets fatigued. That's what we call the IT band. And the idea is that you roll out, you do this it's a piece of myofascial tissue. And the idea is you perform, myofascial release on yourself. Just like I talked about in the TB12 podcast, same deal. And that's the most common one, right? You can use it on your quads, your glutes, your back, your arms, your neck, whatever. But most people use it on the IT band. That's the most common thing. And the idea is you roll it, and these knots and these sore muscles, they get increased blood flow, and that will cause them to start recovering. It'll trigger the restoration process of these muscles. Now, there's a lot of critics of foam rollers, which is something that got me interested and made me actually want to do a podcast on something as simple as foam rolling. And one of the big arguments is that the IT band doesn't actually stretch out much. And I get that part, right? At the most, maybe it expands a quarter of a centimeter, whatever the number may be. I don't have the journal in front of me. But people are quick to dismiss the foam roller because it doesn't work like other muscles. Muscles expand and contract and all that. IT band doesn't do that. So what a lot of people that aren't into rolling out and using that IT band massage a lot during their workouts or their training or anything like that say, well, what's the point? And I see what they're saying. I get it. But as someone who's constantly running, I run almost every day. I'll do squats, probably not as much as I should, but I will do that. I'll engage all my leg muscles throughout. Basketball, jumping, all that kind of stuff. It does feel good. And regardless of what the science says, if it feels good, then it's good for me. Now, while that's not a rule of thumb for everything, we'll take it a step further. Okay, it feels good, but does it solve the long-term problem? And from everything I've seen, read, and how I feel, I don't think it's the solution to the long-term problem, but it's definitely an ingredient. There's not a lot of stuff that when you involve it with your muscles and it feels good, it's rarely bad, right? Nothing, when you work out and you do a bunch of curls, it doesn't feel bad. It hurts, but you feel good because you got a pump going. You got blood flow and oxygen and your muscles expand and contract. It feels good in your body. It's meant to. It even releases endorphins in your brain, right? The feel good thing. And so then it goes to how much does it help? How often do you need to do it? All that kind of stuff. The how much it helps, it's impossible to know. Anyone that says they know exactly how much it helps is full of it because we don't have a gauge on how tight our fascia is on a specific muscle. We don't have an MRI machine hooked up to watch the activity. We're not taking muscle samples or anything to see how you react with the foam roller or without. So I understand the skeptics, right? It's a muscle that can't be stretched. Why are you wasting your time trying to stretch it? Because that's ultimately what you're doing. You're massaging. You're trying to stretch this fascia. And if you can't stretch it, what's the point? Well, they got me there. I can't say what the point is. All I know is it does feel good. It hurts, but you feel good after. You feel relief. So even if it's just the temporary relief, let's assume it's not the solution to a long-term problem. It's just an ingredient, like I think it is. I think it's an ingredient to a long-term problem. Well, now that you're feeling more flexible, healthier, now you can perform your exercises through a better range of motion than you previously had, right? If you don't feel good and something feels tight, you're never going to go through that full motion, right? It's going to naturally stop you. That's how our muscles are. They're these tendons, these muscle spindles that don't let you stretch further than it thinks you can. Well, if you're loose and you're feeling flexible, you can obviously stretch more and get a more proper workout, go through a full range of motion. So that's the first thing where I think it's a no-brainer. Even if you didn't solve anything, at least you feel better and your body thinks it can go through a better range of motion, which ultimately, if you did everything through a perfect range of motion with the perfect load, you would never be injured ever, right? That would be the ultimate oasis of a body. You figured out how to do all that. So that's the first thing with it. The second thing, maybe there is a psychosomatic kind of idea with it. If you just think, if I foam roll, I'm going to be fine. Sometimes mentally that puts you over the hurdle. And I'm very fine with things that just mentally put you over the hurdle. The idea of something just being good mentally is fine with me, which is fine with everybody. A lot of people just don't admit it or don't know it. Like pre-workouts, for instance, as much as I take it every day, it's not so much the effect of the pre-workout, it's just the ritual of taking it every time and just feeling it activate my body says, okay, it's game time, right? It's time to get serious, time to start moving weight around. So that's kind of the second thing. Even if just mentally it helps you out, it's worth it. The third thing, I think, even though it doesn't actually stretch that piece of fascia, it does increase the blood flow to it. Anytime you put pressure on any of your muscles or any type of fascia, it's going to increase the blood flow, which increases the oxygen, which helps restore. So even if it's not stretching it, your body knows there's pressure there, and it's going to send aid to where that pressure is. That's just the way bodies work. If you get hit real hard, blood cells go and you got a bruise, right? And just on that fact alone, I don't see how someone can be very all the way anti-foam roller. And there's a lot of people that are very anti-foam roller. But to be completely anti-foam roller, I also wonder, are you anti-percussive therapy? Are you anti-massage? And maybe some guys are just anti-foam rolling your IT band, and that's fine. Problem is, I know too many successful people that do it. So even if the science says it won't stretch out, I say who cares? I don't think people are thinking, maybe they are. When I roll out my IT band, I don't think I'm stretching. I think I'm massaging it. And if it doesn't increase in length, that's fine. But if you have a steak, right, and you tenderize that steak, it might not really get much bigger once you cook it, but it's going to taste a whole lot better, right? It's going to be a softer piece of meat, not as dense, fat's broken up a little bit. Now, one thing about foam rolling, it doesn't actually break up scar tissue. The steak analogy just made me think of it. It doesn't actually break up scar tissue. I think that's a little bit of a myth because I don't think that's exactly how it works. If it was that easy, I think it would be used a lot more. Also, I don't think there's that much scar tissue on your IT band. I would probably have to get Frank or somebody, a chiropractor, to kind of break that down a little bit more. But as far as I can see, I don't think that should be the motivation to foam roll. I think it should be a motivation to get blood flow into that area and get the muscle warmed up and ready to go. Give yourself a little relief so you can go through the full range of motion. And I think that's very reasonable. And I think most strength conditioning specialists, trainers, PTs would agree with that. I almost wonder if these anti-foam roll people are kind of like the guys that get mad when people don't squat down all the way, right? Like, okay, maybe not, but doesn't mean you're not getting a leg workout type of deal. I'm talking about the guys that really don't like it. Like squat Twitter. It's brutal. And I know I'm preaching range of motion, and at the same time I'm saying, hey, take it easy. But I think if you're anti-foam roll, that means you're definitely not going to use it. And I think it's a tool that should be used to better yourself as a weekend warrior, we'll call it. And one of the stories I kind of tell anybody that's using the foam roller who's asking me about it, it's like, well, I got a buddy who played in the NFL, and they had to do foam rollers before every workout. And if it's good enough for them, the guys are the best athletes in the world, putting their body through physical trauma every day. And that's what we're doing in the weight room, right? We're putting our body through physical trauma for an hour to try to get better, try to get healthier, try to help our muscles grow, be flexible, all that good stuff. If it's good enough for those guys, it's good enough for us. And even if you don't believe in the fascia stretching out, it still is applying pressure and causing good things to happen. Now, if you are one of those people who is just anti-foam roller for your IT band, there's plenty of stuff you can do to help relieve some of the tightness that's on the IT band. The ones I find is the band work, where you put it around your ankles, take a big old step with your toes turned in a little bit or straight, big old step, and then about a half step on the back leg, and walk the length of the gym. That's going to fire up your hips, and it's going to cause blood flow, and then your IT band won't feel as bad because you have it all working. You have the range of motion working for you. The second thing you can always do is jumping off of a box and landing, not straight legs, landing with bent legs from a box, because what that is, the deceleration on impact helps lengthen all those muscles in your legs and hips. And the IT band's running from your hips all the way down to your knees. That is also a very good way to warm up your IT band. Takes a little more effort, but if you're just anti-foam roller, that's another thing you can do. The third thing you can do, and I'm adding it in there in case you just have no fitness equipment at all, is you can just kick your leg out. Turn the toe in, flex your foot, stand up, preferably on like a step or something like that, and just use your hip to elevate your foot. And do enough of those, let's say 20, 25, on both sides, your hips are going to loosen up, which will in turn loosen up your IT band. Any kind of dynamic stretching before you run can help loosen it up. As far as different types of foam rollers, they have the ones with the nodules in them. They have the vibrating ones. They have the vibrator plate. You can put the foam roller on top of that. There's tons of different stuff that you can use, but anything you use for a myofascial release, I can't see it being a bad thing. I've never known someone to injure themselves performing self-myofascial release. So in a nutshell, all these people that are very anti-foam roller, chill out. I don't think anybody's wasting their time because no one's spending that much time on it anyway. Even people that are big on foam rollers don't tell you to spend much time on it. Yeah, it's going to hurt in the beginning, but it will get better. You'll feel better. You'll move better. If you're anti-foam roller, I don't know how you're explaining all that to me while also saying foam rolling's a waste of time, but you can keep trying. It's not going to bother me. Guys, thanks for checking it out. I know the subject was something as small as foam rolling, so it may not be the most interesting podcast of all time. But in case you didn't know, there's the whole anti-foam roller movement, which I always think is fun when you see kind of an anti-foam rolling movement. Right there with squat Twitter. I love me some squat Twitter also. Thanks for checking out Quick Sessions Podcast. Be sure to check out the website, quicksessionspodcast.com. Follow us on Instagram at Quick Sessions Podcast, as well as our new Facebook page. What else do we have? Spotify, Apple Pod Center, Google Play, subscribe, rate, review, all that good stuff. I appreciate the support. I'll see you guys next time.